Welcome to the fourth part of the Room database series. So, if you haven't watched my first three part, first you have to watch the first three part. After that, you can watch this fourth part. So, in this video, we are going to insert the record into the Room database. Okay. So first, I will enable the data binding over here, and let's go to the activity main XML file over here. And here I will click over here, show context section. Okay, so first I need to enable the data binding on the build.module app over here. So go over here and Android, I will write here build features, and here I will set the data binding to true. Okay, click sync now here. So after enabling the data binding, go over here on the activity main XML file over here and click over here. Right click, show context section, convert to data binding layout, and remove this line. Okay. Now let's save it and let's go to the fragment home XML file over here and click over here, show context section, convert to data binding layout. Okay. Let's remove this line. Let's save it. Now go to the main activity file over here and let's create instance of binding over here. Late init. I am date initializing it. Late init where binding of type activity main binding, and let's initialize it. Binding initialize to data binding util, and let's import it. Click Alt plus enter. Dot set content view, and it will take the first activity this, and second I will pass here is the layout file, which is r dot layout dot activity main, and let's save it. Now go to the activity main XML file over here. Now change this constraint layer to frame layout, and I'm going to display those fragment inside our frame layout, and let's change it to frame layout over here. Now after that, remove this text view from here. Now save it and let's give it some ID. ID I am giving it as home frame. Okay, let's save it. Now go to the main activity file over here, and here I will write get support fragment manager dot begin transaction dot replace, and here I will pass the ID of our home frame layout, which is r dot id dot home frame, and the next it will take the name of the fragment, which is home fragment dot commit. Okay, let's save it. Now move to the home fragment over here, and let's remove this line and remove this. Okay, now let's remove this function on create over here. Okay, let's remove this companion object. We don't need this. Okay, now let's create the instance of binding over here. Late init where binding of type fragment home binding, and let's initialize it over here. Binding initialize to fragment home binding dot inflate, and it will take the following argument. First is the layout inflator And the next argument it will take is the container, and attached to root I am passing here is false. Okay, and it will return binding.root. Okay, let's make it private. Now also let initialize the database over here. Let init var database, database of type employee database. Okay, I am also making it private. Now let's create override one function over here on view created. Okay, now inside this on create function, I'm on the click of the button, I'm going to insert the record. Okay, first let's initialize the database over here. Database is initialized to employee database, emp database dot get instance, and here I will pass the first argument it will take here is the context. Here I will pass require context dot application context. Okay, now move forward. So now on the click of the save button, I'm going to save the record. Binding dot button save dot set on click listener. So first I will check if the first I will pass here some validation so that the empty data should not get inserted. So here I will pass one when condition over here, when, and here I will pass binding dot et employee ID dot text dot toString dot is empty. If it is empty, then I will display some error over here. Binding dot etid dot error, and here I will pass one message over here. ID is required. Similarly, I will check another condition over here. Binding dot et name dot text dot toString dot is empty. Then I will mark error over here. Binding dot et name dot error, and here I will pass name is required. Okay, now pass the another validation over here. Binding dot binding dot et address dot text dot toString dot is empty, and here I will pass the error. Binding dot et address dot error, and here I will pass the error. Address is required. Okay, similarly I will do with experience. Binding dot ex- experience dot text dot toString dot is empty. Then here I will pass one message over here. Binding dot ed experience dot error, and here I will pass one error over here is experience is required. Okay, Similarly, I will do with the department name, binding dot et department dot text dot toString dot is empty. And here I will pass one message over here, binding dot et department dot error, and here I will pass department is required. Okay. If the fields are not empty, then else on the else case I will pass else, and else case I'm going to pass here is, let's first initialize the ID over here, val employee ID, and I am initializing to binding dot et employee ID dot text dot toString, and I'm converted to int. I'm converting the ID to int because the parameter inside our constructor data class here is int, and I need to convert first the text to string, then and I have converted it to string into integer over here. Okay. Now here I will launch the coroutine function, which is global scope dot, and here I will pass launch, and inside it I will pass database dot employee dio dot insert employee, and inside it I will pass here is the name of the table, which is employee, and here I will pass the field, first one is employee ID. Okay, and the next one it is asking for the name, employee name, and I'm going to pass here from the ID text over here, binding dot et name dot text dot toString. Okay, on the next field it is asking for the address. Let's pass this over here. I'm going to pass over here, binding dot et address dot text dot toString. Okay, the next field is asking for the experience. Let's pass this over here, binding dot ed experience dot text dot toString. Okay, and the next field is asking for the department. Let's pass it over here, binding dot et department dot text dot toString. Okay, now we have successfully inserted the record over here. Now, after inserting the record, I'm going to clear the records. After clicking of the save button, I'm to clear the data of the edit text over here. So after the click of the save button, after the closing of this when statement, I'm going to clear the edit text over here, binding dot et employee ID dot text, and here I will pass dot clear, and here it will asking for the save call. Let's pass it over here. Next, I will pass here employee Let's clear all the edit text over here. Binding dot et name dot text, and here I will pass dot clear. Okay, let's clear the data of the edit text and pass binding dot et address dot text dot clear. Similarly, I will pass here binding dot et experience dot text dot clear. Okay, and here I will pass binding dot et department dot text dot clear. Okay, so after inserting the record, I'm going to clear the text box and going to display one toast message over here. Okay, so it's your choice whether you want to display the toast message or not. Okay, now after the click of the view button, I'm going to display those fragment inside our recycler view. Okay, so first we need to create one fragment over here. Let's create. So we will cover those on our next part. Okay, thank you.